My kids sided with unfaithful mom, took high-paying jobs from new husband, and excluded me after she left me for him. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's simple, free, and allows us to keep bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Thank you very much. Now let's begin the video. Hello, Reddit. This is tough to write, but I really need some perspective. I am Mark, 45, male. My now ex-wife, let's call her Sophie, is 43, female. We were married for 20 years, college sweethearts, the whole deal. We built a life together, had 2 kids, Liam, who is now 19, male, and Chloe, who is 17, female. From the outside, and honestly from the inside for a long time, I thought we had a good, solid life. I work as an architect, running a moderately successful small firm I built from the ground up. It demanded long hours sometimes, especially in the beginning, but it provided well for us. We had a nice house in a good neighborhood, great schools for the kids, family vacations every year. Sophie worked part-time as a substitute teacher when the kids were younger, but stopped working entirely about 5 years ago, saying she wanted to focus more on the kids during their high school years and manage the house. I supported that. I wanted her to be happy and less stressed. Liam was always a bright kid, maybe a bit ambitious, interested in business and making money even from a young age. Chloe was quieter, more artistic, sensitive. I thought I had a great relationship with both of them. We did Sunday hikes. I coached Liam's soccer team for years, helped Chloe with her art projects. I wasn't a perfect dad, who is? Sometimes work stressed me out. Maybe I wasn't always as present as I could have been, but I loved them fiercely and I thought they knew that. I thought Sophie and I were solid too. Sure, the spark wasn't fireworks like it was 20 years ago, but there was comfort, companionship, shared history, or so I believed. About 2 years ago, maybe early 2022, I started noticing small changes in Sophie. She became very protective of her phone, always angling it away from me. She started going out more often with friends. I'd never heard her mentioned before. There were unexplained credit card charges for lunches or shopping trips she was vague about. When I asked, she'd get defensive, accusing me of being controlling or not trusting her. It created this tension between us. I tried to talk to her about it, suggesting maybe we were drifting apart and needed to reconnect, maybe counseling. She brushed it off, saying I was imagining things, that she was just trying to find herself again now the kids were older. Part of me wanted desperately to believe her. The thought of our marriage being in trouble was terrifying, but the weirdness continued. She started dressing differently, more effort, more expensive clothes. She was often distracted, smiling at her phone, then quickly putting it away if I walked into the room. The intimacy between us, which had already slowed down, basically disappeared completely. My gut was screaming that something was wrong. I felt sick with anxiety most of the time. I remember one evening she said she was going to a book club meeting. It was weird because she hadn't been in a book club for years. I didn't say anything, but later that night, curiosity, or maybe desperation, got the better of me. I checked her location on the family app we used, something I had literally never done before. It showed her at a fancy downtown hotel, nowhere near the library where any book club would meet. My heart sank. I felt cold all over. I didn't confront her that night. I needed proof, something concrete. I couldn't stand the not knowing. Over the next few weeks, I did something I'm not proud of, but I felt I had no choice. I checked our shared phone records online. There were hundreds of calls and texts, day and night, to one specific number I didn't recognize. The final nail in the coffin came when I checked our bank statements more closely. There were hotel charges, expensive restaurant bills, things that didn't line up with the life we were living or what she told me she was doing. I decided to confront her. I waited until the kids were out of the house one Saturday afternoon. I laid out the phone records, the bank statements on the kitchen table. My hands were shaking. I asked her calmly at first to please just tell me the truth. What followed was awful. First came the denial, then the gaslighting. She said I was paranoid, insecure, that the calls were work-related for a potential part-time job she hadn't told me about yet, that the charges were mistakes or gifts for friends. But her eyes darted around, she couldn't look at me. The story kept changing. Finally, after maybe an hour of this agonizing back and forth, she broke down. Yes, she was having an affair. It had been going on for nearly a year. The man was Richard, a wealthy local businessman, recently divorced, around 50 years old. Apparently, they met at some charity function she'd attended months ago. She claimed she was unhappy, that I didn't appreciate her, that I worked too much, that Richard saw her, appreciated her, made her feel alive. Each word was like a physical blow. 20 years of marriage, our family, just thrown away. I was devastated, angry, confused, hurt beyond words. I felt like such a fool. How could I have missed this for so long? The worst part, Reddit, was telling the kids. I knew it would destroy them, but they deserved to know the truth, or at least part of it. Sophie and I agreed we'd tell them together that we were separating. We sat them down a few days later. We tried to present a united front, saying we'd grown apart, but Sophie immediately started subtly blaming me. She talked about feeling lonely, unappreciated, hinting that my focus on work had pushed her away. I was stunned she'd do that in front of them. Their reaction wasn't what I expected at all. I thought they'd be sad, maybe angry at the situation, but supportive of both of us. Instead, Liam, my 19-year-old son, almost immediately sided with his mother. He said things like, "Well, Dad, you were always working. Mom was always here for us." He sounded like he was quoting her directly. Chloe, my sensitive daughter, just cried and ran to her room, but later, she seemed to believe her mom's narrative too. She became distant, cold towards me. It turned out Sophie had been poisoning the well for months, complaining to them about me, twisting situations, painting herself as a victim and me as the neglectful husband. And Richard, he wasn't just some anonymous affair partner. Sophie had apparently introduced him to the kids casually weeks before the separation, presenting him as just a friend. He had apparently been charming, buying them things, taking an interest in their lives. He'd talked to Liam about his business aspirations, promising connections and future opportunities. He'd complimented Chloe's art, offering to connect her with gallery owners he knew. They were dazzled by his wealth and attention. So when the truth came out, they didn't see Richard as the homewrecker. They saw him as the guy who made their mom happy, the guy who was interested in them, contrasting him with me, the supposedly distant dad Sophie had described. My heart broke all over again. This felt like a deeper betrayal than the affair itself. My own children chose him, chose her narrative over me. The divorce was brutal. Sophie, likely advised by Richard and his expensive lawyers, went for everything. She used the kids' warped perceptions against me, suggesting I was an emotionally unavailable father, that she deserved the lion's share because she'd sacrificed her career for the family while I just worked. Liam even provided a statement supporting her claims about my supposed neglect, focusing on times I missed events due to work deadlines, conveniently forgetting all the times I was there. Chloe didn't provide a statement, but her silence and avoidance spoke volumes. It was incredibly painful. I felt like I was losing everything: my wife, my family, my financial stability, my reputation. Sophie moved out quickly, straight into Richard's luxurious penthouse apartment. The kids started spending almost all their time there. Richard bought Liam a fancy new laptop for college and offered him a ridiculously well-paid summer internship at his company. He bought Chloe expensive art supplies and designer clothes. They were living a life I couldn't compete with financially, especially with the divorce draining my resources. Whenever I tried to call them, my calls went to voicemail. Texts went unanswered for days, if at all. When I did manage to get Liam on the phone, he was short, defensive, almost hostile. He talked about how great Richard was, how much his mom deserved to be happy. Chloe just avoided me. She stopped coming over for our scheduled weekends, making excuses. They excluded me from Liam's high school graduation party, which Sophie and Richard hosted at his place. I saw pictures later on social media, my kids smiling alongside their mother and the man who destroyed our family. It felt like a knife twisting in my gut every single day. I tried talking to them, explaining my side, but they wouldn't listen. They were completely under Sophie and Richard's influence. I hit rock bottom in the months following the finalization of the divorce, around the summer of 2023. I was living alone in the family house, which felt huge and empty. Every room held memories that now felt tainted. I was paying substantial alimony and child support, struggling to keep my business afloat while dealing with the emotional wreckage. I felt utterly alone and betrayed on all fronts. There were days I didn't want to get out of bed. But then something shifted. Maybe it was anger, maybe it was sheer survival instinct. I decided I wouldn't let them break me. Sophie, Richard, even my own kids, they didn't get to destroy my life completely. I owed it to myself to rebuild. I started small. I threw myself into therapy, unpacking the grief, the anger, the sense of betrayal. It was incredibly hard work facing those feelings head-on, but it slowly started to help. I reconnected with old friends I'd neglected, joined a gym, started focusing intensely on my work again, not just as a means of survival, but as a source of pride and accomplishment. My architecture firm had taken a hit during the turmoil, but I poured my energy into landing new projects. I focused on innovative designs, sustainable architecture, something I was passionate about but hadn't had the headspace for previously. I networked like crazy. Slowly, things started to turn around. I landed a significant contract for a green community development project late last year. It was creatively fulfilling and financially rewarding. It felt good to be building something positive again, something that was mine. I sold the family house, Too Many Ghosts, and bought a smaller, modern condo downtown. Decorating it, making it my own space was therapeutic. I didn't date, I wasn't ready for that. My focus was entirely on healing myself and rebuilding my professional life. I maintained minimal contact with Sophie, only regarding essential kid logistics, which were few and far between since they rarely wanted to see me. I kept my interactions polite but distant. I refused to engage in any drama or arguments. Meanwhile, I started hearing whispers through mutual acquaintances about Sophie and Richard's perfect life. Apparently, Richard was incredibly image-conscious and controlling. Sophie, who had resented my perceived control, which was mostly just concern about her weird behavior, was now living under much stricter rules. Richard dictated where they went, who they saw, even commented on her appearance. He was generous, yes, but it came with strings. Liam's amazing internship turned out to be less glamorous than expected. From what I pieced together, he was basically doing menial tasks, fetching coffee, running errands, and Richard wasn't mentoring him as promised. Richard apparently treated his employees quite poorly, and Liam was getting a taste of that. He felt trapped because the pay was good, and he didn't want to admit to anyone, least of all me, that it wasn't the dream job he'd bragged about. Chloe, too, seemed less enthralled. A friend of mine ran into her at a coffee shop, and she mentioned Chloe looked withdrawn and unhappy. She apparently confessed that she felt awkward living in Richard's sterile penthouse, missed her old friends, and didn't really connect with Richard despite his gifts. She felt like she and Liam were accessories meant to complete Richard's image of a happy family man. I didn't reach out based on these rumors. I decided they needed to come to me. I had tried reaching out for months after the separation, only to be rejected. The ball was in their court now. I focused on my own healing and success. My project was getting positive press. I was feeling stronger, more confident than I had in years. I was rebuilding my life piece by piece on my own terms. So Reddit, that's the backstory. The immediate pain is less raw now, but the scar from my kid's betrayal runs deep. I focused on myself, and honestly, I'm doing better than I ever thought possible. But things with the kids and my ex might be shifting. AITAH for not reaching out more actively after they pushed me away so completely, even if I hear they might be struggling. Update 1. Wow, Reddit, I'm honestly blown away by the sheer volume of responses and the support. Thank you. Reading through your comments, so many validating my feelings and my approach, it really helped solidify my resolve. Many of you warned me to be cautious, that the kids might only reach out when they need something, and advised me to protect myself emotionally and financially. I took that advice to heart. So a few things have happened since my original post just a few weeks ago. The first major development involved Liam. About 2 weeks ago, I got a call from him late on a Friday night. This was highly unusual. Our communication had dwindled to occasional awkward texts initiated by me. He sounded stressed, unlike his usual confident, almost arrogant tone he'd adopted since the split. He stumbled over his words, eventually admitting that things at Richard's company were not going well. Apparently, Richard had publicly berated him in a meeting for a minor mistake, embarrassing him in front of other employees. Liam said Richard had been increasingly demanding and critical, the initial charm long gone. The great opportunity had turned into a toxic work environment. He confessed he hated it there but felt stuck. He didn't outright ask for help, but the subtext was clear. He was testing the waters. I listened calmly. I didn't say I told you so, though the urge was strong. I validated his feelings, acknowledging that working in a toxic environment is incredibly difficult. I asked him what he thought he should do about it. He mumbled something about maybe looking for other jobs but needing the money from Richard's company. I didn't offer to bail him out financially or find him a job in my network immediately. I told him that figuring out his next steps was important, and that exploring his options sounded like a mature approach. I kept it supportive but neutral, maintaining the boundary you all advised. It felt like the right thing to do, showing I was there to listen as his father, but not immediately fixing the problems created by his choices. He sounded a bit surprised by my calm response, maybe expecting anger or lectures. The call ended cordially, but with him clearly realizing there was no instant rescue coming from me. The second thing involves Chloe. She actually texted me last week, sending me a picture of a painting she'd just finished. It was the first time she'd shared her art with me in almost 2 years. I told her it was beautiful and asked her about the inspiration behind it. This led to a brief, tentative text exchange, much warmer than anything we'd had since the divorce. She mentioned feeling a bit isolated and missing our old neighborhood. She didn't mention Richard or Sophie directly, but the implication was there. Again, I kept it light, supportive, didn't pry or push. I just let her know I was happy to hear from her and always loved seeing her artwork. Baby steps, I guess. As for Sophie and Richard, I heard through the grapevine that Richard's company is facing some financial difficulties due to some risky investments he made. Nothing confirmed, but rumors are circulating. Sophie apparently seems stressed, and the lavish spending has reportedly curtailed somewhat. It seems the perfect facade might be cracking. I feel a strange mix of vindication and sadness about that. Vindication because their happiness built on my family's wreckage seems to be faltering, but sadness for the life Sophie threw away, and the impact this instability might have on my kids, even though they chose this path. Overall, I'm sticking to my plan. Focus on my own well-being and career, be open but cautious with the kids, and let them navigate the consequences of their decisions while knowing I'm a stable presence if they choose to genuinely reconnect. Your support has been invaluable. Thanks again, Reddit. Update 2. Hello again, Reddit. It's been a couple of months since my last update, and things have definitely continued to evolve. Thank you again for all the messages and advice. Knowing strangers cared enough to weigh in has been surprisingly helpful during this whole ordeal. The support kept me grounded, reminding me to prioritize my own peace while navigating the complex situation with my kids. The biggest news is about Liam. A few weeks after that late-night call, he called me again. This time, he was direct. He told me he had quit his job at Richard's company. Apparently, things got worse after the public berating. Richard became even more difficult, piling on unreasonable workloads and constantly undermining him. Liam said he finally realized that no amount of money was worth the humiliation and the toxic atmosphere. He sounded humbled, defeated, but also relieved. Then came the part I and many of you predicted. He asked if I could help him. Not just with job advice, but he actually asked if he could maybe stay with me for a little while, saying things were tense at Richard's place and he needed space to figure things out. He admitted he'd been a complete idiot, that he got swayed by the money and promises, and that he was deeply sorry for how he treated me. He said I was right about Richard all along. This was the moment. I could have laid into him, listed all his wrongdoings, but honestly, seeing him sound so broken, I just felt sad for him. But I also remembered your advice about boundaries. I told him I appreciated his apology, that it meant a lot. Regarding staying with me, I said yes, he could, but under certain conditions. He'd have to actively look for a job, contribute to household chores, and we would need to have some serious conversations about what happened, maybe even attend a few family therapy sessions together. I wasn't going to rug sweep his behavior. He agreed immediately, sounding genuinely grateful. He moved in about a month ago. It hasn't been easy. There have been some tough talks and we're starting therapy next week. But it feels like we're slowly, carefully, rebuilding something. He's actively job hunting, sending out resumes every day, and he's been respectful and helpful around the condo. He told me Sophie was furious he quit Richard's company and blamed him for embarrassing her. That seemed to be a real eye-opener for him about his mother's priorities. Chloe has also been reaching out more consistently. We've met for coffee a few times. She confessed how unhappy she's been, feeling like a pawn in Sophie and Richard's life. She misses our old life, our home, and me. She apologized profusely for shutting me out, admitting she felt pressured by Sophie and overwhelmed by Richard's initial charm offensive. She's still living with Sophie and Richard, as she's only 17, but she spends more weekends at my place now, especially since Liam moved in. Seeing her brother stand up to Richard and Sophie seems to have given her more courage. She's focusing on her art and applying to colleges, and I'm helping her with her portfolio and applications, just like I always imagined I would. Our relationship feels like it's healing, slowly but surely. As for Sophie and Richard, the rumors about Richard's financial troubles turned out to be true. His company is undergoing major restructuring, and there have been layoffs. The penthouse lifestyle seems less secure now. Sophie apparently tried to convince Liam to go back and apologize to Richard, desperate to maintain the connection and the lifestyle, which further alienated Liam. I haven't spoken to Sophie directly much, beyond necessary logistics for Chloe. She sounds strained. The natural consequences are playing out. My revenge, if you can call it that, is simply living my own life well, being successful and stable, and being the parent my kids can now rely on again, the parent they are choosing to return to. They see the contrast between my stable, self-made success and Richard's potentially shaky empire built partly on manipulation. It's not a perfect fairytale ending. The scars are still there, and trust needs to be fully rebuilt with my kids, especially Liam. But for the first time in 2 years, I feel hopeful about the future, not just for myself, but for my relationship with my children. They made huge mistakes, yes, but they were young and manipulated. They seem to be learning from it, and I'm cautiously optimistic we can find our way back to being a family, albeit a very different one. The lessons I've learned: betrayal can come from unexpected places, even your own children. But focusing on your own healing, strength, and integrity is the best response. You can't control others' choices, but you can control your reaction. Setting boundaries is crucial, even with family. And sometimes the best revenge is simply building a happy, successful life for yourself despite the actions of those who tried to tear you down. It shows them, and more importantly yourself, what you're truly made of. Thanks for listening, Reddit. Your collective wisdom really made a difference. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.